Hey guys, Michal Hucko here and welcome to another lecture of our REST API class. In this lecture, we're finally going to talk about Django REST framework. I'm going to show you how we can do everything what we did so far with subjects, with teachers, using Django REST framework, serializers and view sets and router. So there is a lot to talk about today. Let's start. Before we start, the first thing what we need to do is install the Django REST framework. And in order to do this, you go to your command line and you put there pip install Django REST framework without spaces, everything together. I have already done this before, so there is nothing I would install. In your case, it maybe will take a couple of seconds, couple of minutes. So what we need to do now, or what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a new table, a new model, which is called teacher, and we're gonna register the whole CRUD, create, read, update, delete methods for this kind of resource. So what we need to do is first, we go to the school app, of course, and we go to the models. And in the models, we create a new class, and we call it teacher, and it will inherit from models.model. Right. Now, our teacher will have a name, which will be models.har field. It will have up to max length. It's always good idea to specify the max length. In this case, you are overcoming some problems in the future. You may overcome some of them. Surname. Every teacher should have a surname. Models, car field, max length, specified to 56. Next, a title, right? Some engineer or bachelor, I don't know what. It's a car field. In this case, we don't need that many characters, so we specify just 16 of them, and we also create a new special column which is called created, and this created field or column is used most often to record the time when was the given object created or when was the given object written into database. And in this case, we're going to use a special field which is called the datetime field. Datetime field is a special field which help us to record the time, exact time with an exact date. It's not just 12 o'clock, but 12 o'clock, let's say the 1st of January 2022, I don't know, okay? And because we want this field to be auto-filled every time we create an object, we need a parameter which is called auto add now. Now, you may be wondering auto now add, yeah. You may be wondering, okay, Michal, how is that possible? You know it by heart. I read a lot of documentation. Many times I got stuck and I'm searching for new things. It's normal. I don't have everything in my head. You need to go to documentation and search for the answers, or go to the internet and on Stack Overflow or anywhere else, you will find some answer. So, and you specify this to true. Now, maybe one more thing, it's quite common to order the results of the read functionality, right, from the CRUD. So many times you want to order by this created at field. So how you can accomplish this here? From inside, you can specify here meta class inside this class, and here you specify ordering parameter, where you specify names of the field, what this results of the read operation should be ordered by. Like first order by created at, then for example you want to order by name, you specify here the name, but most of the time you specify only the ordering by created that. And don't forget, we want also the string method, which is a good practice to specify. And in this case, we will return an f string. And in this case, we specify a name and self. And that's surname, self, right? Self, surname, self name. Perfect. So we now have created the model. What is the next thing? Next, we will create the serializer. The serializer I was talking about in the beginning. This will help us to evaluate every JSON or every data, which we will transfer into the backend REST API or outside of the backend REST API. Now, the use case for this may be quite simple. Now, imagine we have created here this simple post endpoint for subjects, right? And imagine you don't want to allow someone put an empty name of the subject into the database, which makes sense. Every subject in our school should have at least some name. Or let's say you want to specify that this name should be minimum length of 3 or 4 or 5, right? All these things are quite easy to accomplish, but it will need a lot of code in the views. What we can do, for example, every time we get a post request on that endpoint of list subjects, we will read the JSON, and based on the JSON data, we will put here a couple of ifs, right? Which will count the number of characters within this name and so on. And based on this number, it will return error, right? In case there are less than 3 characters or non-characters, it will return an error, which can be sometimes too handy. But now imagine you have like 20 tables and you have like 400 columns together, right? And you have a lot of requirements, and writing these ifs for each of the column can be really exhausting. And this is where serializers came into play. Serializers helps us to evaluate the JSON based on the model prescription in the models, part. That's one of the useful functionality of serializers. Of course, there are many more, but right now we will be talking mainly about this functionality. So let's write our first serializer. In order to do that, we click here and we create a file which is called serializers.py. Now it's up to you how you're gonna call this file. A best practice is to call it serializers. And every time you will go through some code of some Django REST developer, you will see there are these serializer.py files filled with serializers. So in order to use serializer, you need to first import a default serializer. So from REST framework, this is the module for the Django REST framework. Import, please. Import serializers. Right, and we will now create something which is called a model serializer, and this model serializer is based on top of model, right? Right. So we need to import the models also. So from school app import models, and what we're gonna do now, we will create a class which is called teacher serializer, and this teacher serializer will be based on serializers.model serializer, right? And what we need to say here, we need to again specify this meta class, and we're gonna say what is the model which we are basing the serializer on top of. In this case, it's model.teacher, and we also need to specify fields, and these fields means which of the fields of the teacher model we really want to use in the serializer, because many times in the database we have like this created or many other fields which are out of field, and we don't want to use them within our serializer. Maybe we will find some use case in the future. Right now, you should keep in mind that in these fields, we specify which fields of the model we're gonna use. In this case, we're gonna use all models, and this is how you should write it. It's a little cumbersome. I would rather use some regex, but they decided to go with this notation, so you specify all. Perfect. Now, next thing what you need to do, of course, is to write a view. And when you look here at the views, we would like to create, read, update, delete for the teachers. So some of you may say, okay, we're gonna just copy and paste these methods. And again, one of the principles of good coding or best practices coding is the dry principle. Don't repeat yourself. And here the view sets of Django REST framework may help. So Django is trying to help us with these views, because many times these views are very similar. Basically, every time we create a new resource, we want to have a create, read, update, delete functionality for those endpoints, for those resources, right? So what is Django providing us is a concept called view set. And view set is sometimes hard to understand, so I would rather explain it on the example. So you're gonna import it. Import view sets, right? And we also need from school app, we're gonna import the serializers which we created. And now when I go down, I go here and put here class and go like teacher view set, okay? And I base it on view sets that model view set. And I just need to say, now I just need to say the serializer class, class, which is in this case serializers.teacher serializer. And I also need to specify something which is called query set. We were talking about query sets when I was talking about ORM and I was using it in this shell. Query set is just specifying to this teacher view set a function or a list of all objects, or the way how you're going to approach this list of all objects. And the way from the database, and the way how you're going to do it is through the model. So you go like models.teacher, please give me objects, and what I want is all objects, all, and this is a function. Okay, so this will return something which is called query set, and you need to assign this to a teacher view set in order to work it the way how we would like to. Now, those of you who are paying attention for the rest of my lectures know that yes, we created the views, but now we need to register it to your URLs. Okay, so I go to URLs, and here I'm gonna use again another special feature of the Django REST framework, which is called a router. Many times when we want to add a new resource, basically, again, we will just repeat ourselves and we will need to create these paths and record it and register it to the URL patterns. In order to make this life or make this thing more easier, Django REST framework provides something which is called REST framework.router. Routers import default router, right? And don't forget to import the views, which are here. And I want also to import one more important function from Django URLs and I think it's conf import, and it's called include. Now we will create this router here. So router, the default router, okay. And we will now register an endpoints or set of endpoints on top of teachers string. So you don't need to put there the backslash, and you shouldn't, okay? And we will say, please register view sets, views that teacher view set. And we are saying, please, every time you get an endpoint starting with teachers, please route the traffic to the views called teacher view set. And this view set is covering create, read, update, delete functionality. You will see it in short. But now, because the Django works the way how it works, you also need to put this router into the URL patterns. And the way how you do it is as simple as putting here another path, because these URL patterns need to be paths, and the path starts with nothing, because anything else besides hello world subjects or subjects ending with the key will be routed, to this router. So router.urls, okay? And that's how it works, right? So every time the paths before this one will not pass, this path will get the rest of the URL, in this case teachers, and let's say ID and so on and so on. And everything will be routed to the teacher view set. And this is very handy, guys, because here you can have as much registers as you want. You will have 20 resources, you will have here 20 registers. It's so powerful. Now, we have everything ready to work for us, right? So how are we gonna test it? We're gonna go here, Python, manage.py, and go run server. Now we will create a server, and you will see that in the Postman, I created again set of endpoint calls, in this case to teachers. Okay, so the teachers endpoint here should return list of teachers. Here we're gonna create a teacher. Here we're gonna update the teacher and delete the teacher. Of course, there should be one more get, which will just get the details of a specific teacher, but this is working. Please try it on your own, okay? So when I go back, the server is having some problem. And the problem is that it should be query set, not query sets, right? So I press save, and now the server will be reloaded. And it should be working. I'm sorry, guys, I made a mistake there. So now when the server is working, we forgot one important thing. Because we created a new model, we need to create a new table. So going back to our command, we need to run command Python, manage.py, make migrations. So this will create a new migration based on the teacher model. So don't forget to run after this Python, manage.py, migrate. Okay, this will create the table in our Postgre in this case, and through the pgadmin you will see that I have created the table. Please don't forget to do this. Yeah, in this case nothing applied because I ran this before, but I forget to record. So if I go to the pgadmin, you will see that I have here 12 tables, where the new one is called school app _ teacher, right? So everything is working, everything is fine. Now the next thing what I need to do is to run the server. You always need to keep in mind, whenever you create a new model, you need to migrate. You need to migrate your table, your old version of table and tables in the database to reflect your current code base, right? So that's the important thing. Now, when I go to the Postman, everything will be working. When I go to delete a teacher, right, there is no teacher, so this will end up with a problem, right? Not found, there is no teacher like this. But if I go to get the teachers, in this case, I get the teachers, and there will be none of them because I have an empty database. I can create a teacher with this JSON. And look, this is the powerful thing. Now, when I create this teacher, I get an error. But why? Oh yeah, I made a mistake. So I made a mistake here. I put again plural in the serializers. So please rewrite this to model. I'm sorry, right? This will again reload the server. Yeah, I don't know what I have with these plural forms. You see, this is important. These fields are not auto-filled with my IDE, and that's the reason why I'm making so many mistakes. So if I go back now and I try to create a new teacher, you will see that the new teacher has been created. Before I had there another teacher, that's the reason why it starts with 2, but I deleted it before this recording. But you can see just by specifying these 3 fields, automatically this created has been created for us, okay? Now, the powerful thing about the serializer is that, for example, if I specify an empty title and I would like to create a new teacher, you will see an error message. 400 bad request title, this field may not be blank. And the reason for this error is because Django REST framework out of the box is assuming that all these fields shouldn't be blank, so empty. You can specify which of the fields can be blank by specifying parameter blank true. But this is the powerful tool of the Django REST serializers. They are assuming and validating the data against the table schema, right? And this is powerful. This helps us to provide, on one hand, the meaningful status code, on the other hand, the meaningful error message, which can be then propagated to the front end. And that's the thing from the beginning of the video. We don't need to solve these in the views because everything is handled for us by the serializers, right? So in this way, when I change this to allow blank true, and if I go to the postman and I send the request again, in this case, in this time, the title is empty and the request is 201 created. How amazing is that? You can run also put every method from this CRUD has been created for us, right? Sorry, I'm adjusting number 1, which is not created, but if I adjust number 2, you will see that this one has been created for me. You see all these meaningful messages, even the one which didn't exist or didn't found, right, the ID. I never wrote it anywhere, right? But the Django REST framework has provided it for me. Of course, you can override it. And there are many ways how you can write your custom error messages and stuff like this. But serializers and Django REST framework help us to keep the code clean. Don't repeat ourselves on one hand, but on the other hand, the whole implementation feels a little bit magical. That's the reason why I started this tutorial with the basics of Django, where I showed you how you can accomplish all of the functionality of Django REST framework through the basic functionality of Django, right? But Django is a very nice tool because it helps us in big applications where we don't need to write everything by our own, but Django helps us to make things much more easier and clearer for the rest of the team. So please feel free to run the delete and also run the individual get if you want. Again, I put here number 2, but if I put number 1, but if I put number 2, you see 204, 200, so everything was okay for no content, so nothing was returned, but the data has been deleted. You can even check the database. Please, on your homework or for your homework, change the subjects to use serializers or create another table using these serializers. You need to try to experiment with this. Read the documentation about serializers. Django REST framework has amazing documentation with a lot of examples, with a lot of use cases. Go through the documentation and make sure you understand what is written there. That's everything for today's lecture. Thank you very much. I hope I will see you in the next one.